Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, July 14th. Hopefully, everybody is doing well. We are back after 1 week off, and now we're even closer to the start of the NFL season, even closer to training camp. Training camp's pretty much here almost. This time next week, we will be obviously talking all things NFL, but this time next week, we will officially be past really the last dead week of the NFL offseason. For a lot of teams, rookies report July 18th, which is, I believe, Thursday. If I'm doing my math correct, maybe it's Friday. It's one of the days. July 18th coming up here. And then veterans, I think, report for a lot of teams on the 23rd, which is the week after that. I know rookies for the Ravens already reported. So camp is pretty much here over the next week or two. You're going to see a lot of things start up. And in 2 weeks from this weekend is back together Sunday. Or back together weekend, rather, over those 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, with camp resuming. So lots of good things coming up here today on the show as we get closer to the season. This is episode 20. Make sure to please like and subscribe. DiMari, we're back, and we got some good topics in store for today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Felt weird off my routine, every Sunday, every Saturday. But yes, we are back. We are almost back to football season. Hall of Fame game should be first week of August, so I'm really excited by that. But let's get into today. We got some good topics, thanks to some clips of Tyreek Hill and some other things. So I'm excited.
Tyreek Hill is definitely providing content. I don't know if I would consider it. I don't know if I want to call it top tier content because his list is not even anywhere close to that, but we'll get into it. All you need to know is Baker Mayfield was ranked at number 5, and that'll probably tell you the rest of the story there. But at this point, I mean, I'm not surprised coming from a guy like Tyreek Hill. I'm just not. He's just kind of one of those players that would put Baker Mayfield in the top 5, and that's exactly what he did. So anyway, we are going to start today, though. We'll get into that a little bit later on. We'll also get into Pro Football Talk. They release some more rankings on NFC quarterbacks, ranking NFC quarterbacks. So we'll break that down, kind of give our own list as well, put our own little spin on it. We'll give you Tyreek Hill stuff, and we'll also get into some Davante Adams stuff because him and Aaron Rodgers teaming up again has kind of creeped back into the news this week as one of the biggest stories in the league. So we'll start with Jamal Adams going to the Tennessee Titans. The veteran safety signed a 1-year deal worth the league minimum at $1.125 million. It has a signing bonus of $167,000. So not a huge deal, a very small 1-year deal for Jamal Adams. It's kind of crazy to think that this is happening now in Jamal Adams' career where he's 28 years old. He'll be 29 in October, but Jamal Adams is coming off of one of the biggest contracts from a safety. The Seahawks made him the highest paid safety in the NFL with a 4-year, $70 million contract extension in 2021 after the 2020 campaign. And now here he is signing on with the Tennessee Titans for the league minimum. So ever since that trade to Seattle from the New York Jets, things have kind of gone south for Jamal Adams. He played 12 games in 2020 and 2021, both those years, so 24 games combined. Then he only played 1 game in 2022, and then he played just 9 games last season. So this was a guy total in his 4 years in Seattle played just 34 games, which I haven't done the math, but that is not a lot at all. That's probably around maybe 4 seasons, somewhere around. I mean, I'll do it now, but that's 34 divided by 4 would be, what, about 9 games a season, 8.5 games a year, which is not what you want to see for a guy that's getting paid all that money. So he's trying to get his career back on track. I like to call him, or some Jets fans like to call him, Blitz Boy, but whatever you want to call him, Jamal Adams with Tennessee. What was your first reaction to this move?
Well, all things you want in life aren't good things. I can tell you that. And I say that because I remember sitting in class, back before I graduated college, sitting in class around the trade deadline, refreshing my Twitter every 3 seconds, like, Jamal Adams, please be a Cowboy. Please be a Cowboy. This is when, those things are kind of heating up. And I guess you can say this is the first time I kind of agree with Jerry Jones not going after somebody that wants to play for Dallas. Because, I mean, that would have been the blunder of maybe one of the biggest blunders in Cowboy history, just trading all these pieces and draft picks for somebody that as you just said, can't stay healthy, hasn't been healthy in Seattle, hasn't played up to his contract. And I don't know if you necessarily remember, but I remember it might have been last year or the year before, where even when he got into it with the reporter online and started talking about the reporter's wife, because the reporter was talking about some things Adams was not doing on the field. So not even like necessarily a good guy outside of football, I guess you can say. But for Tennessee, I mean, kind of similar to Washington. I mean, if this was maybe 2019, 2020, and we're talking about a Pro Bowl team and you got Jamal Adams, like, hey, that's a good fit. But I guess that's just an add on to the Titans retirement home.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
good move for him, I guess.
Yeah. And we'll throw that up here on the screen. Some of the Titans that have worn, or some of the players that have worn the Titans across their chest, not exactly pretty, to say the least. I mean, you got 3 washed receivers. You've got a washed running back. You've got a washed linebacker, and essentially Jamal Adams, who, I mean, maybe he's got a little bit left in the tank, but this is a guy that's played 8.5 games over the last 4 seasons. He's played 10 games over the last 2 and hasn't been the same player, one of the worst players in coverage in the NFL. And that's not even an exaggeration. I mean, you watch this guy play, he can't cover a parked car at this point. That's how bad he's been in coverage. So when you look at this list, I mean, for the Titans fans, this has got to infuriate you. It's like it is a retirement home, pretty much.
I mean, there's 2 people missing. Some can argue, but I'm going to say D-Hop is up there as one of those washed guys. He still has a little bit in the tank, but definitely one of them. And Tony Pollard, maybe question mark, could be, because I mean, his a complete drop off from like his first few years in Dallas. Who knows what he's going to kind of do this year? But if you add those 2 to the mix, those are guys who all were like Pro Bowlers and just great at what they do. And all of a sudden, you only want to play another 2-3 years, go to Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you bring up a good point about D-Hop. You know, we'll see with Tony Pollard. D-Hop had over 1,000 yards last year, but he's 32 years old now. He's a year older. This could be a situation where he has like 800 yards this year, doesn't do nothing, or even less than that. Can't stay on the field, struggles, just kind of falls off. So, yeah, there's a good chance we could be talking about the Titans again down the road, and there'll be 2 more players added to this list, most likely put next to AP and Andre Johnson. But I mean, trying to think out of these 6 players we'll throw up on the screen. And hey, look, Jamal Adams, we can't throw him in the conversation yet because he hasn't played a snap with the Titans. But out of these 5, the worst player to wear that uniform out of these 5 guys, I would have to say it's probably Adrian Peterson, right? He only played 3 games. If you had to rank him, it would be like AP, and then
I'm going to agree. I think I'm going to agree with that.
Because he had he bounced. He played with Tennessee and then he played with Seattle. Remember, he played that one game with Seattle, which is strange.
Yes.
Adrian Peterson's end of his career was so strange. It was so, because he had that one year where he had over 1,000 yards with Washington. I think that was back when they were still called the Redskins, before they, I think, made the switch to the Commanders or whatever, the football team back then. Now they're the Commanders, but he had that one like good year with them, and it just completely fell off, because then he spent 1 year in Detroit, and then that was pretty much it. It was just like, go find 4 games to go retire.
Am I living like a dream, or I swear I remember a Cardinals stint in there somewhere in the mix of all that. Yeah, like it's wow.
Saints, I think too.
I believe he was on the Saints for a while.
Jeez, brutal.
That Shaq picture of him in like all the colored uniforms.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson has turned into like one of the best immaculate grid guys, because you could just think of, if you see it, Vikings and, I don't know, Lions, or Vikings and Seahawks, you just boom, Adrian Peterson. It's maybe 3%, 4%.
I'll say that's even pretty high.
Name, but
I'll say 1.2%, unless you really
that
know
might
ball.
be high. Yeah, if you would have to really know ball to know that he played 1 game. I'm looking at his stats right now. That 1 game with the Seahawks, he had 11 carries for 16 yards. He did have a touchdown. He averaged 1.5 yards per carry.
Everything was on the goal line. It had to be.
Pretty much. But yeah,
Uh,
so Jamal Adams goes to Tennessee. Out of this picture, he's got the most swag. So maybe, he in those Oilers uniforms, maybe he turns it up a gear, can stay on the field. But yeah, you mentioned, and I'm glad you mentioned some of the off the field stuff because I loved Jamal Adams when he was with the Jet. I thought he was kind of just a leader. He was like the kind of like a, I don't know if I want to say face of the franchise, but just a cornerstone piece, like the future of the team. He was a, team captain, all that stuff. I have a jersey. I actually have a Jamal Adams jersey that I wore multiple times to games while he was a Jet. I mean, he was so good in his 3 seasons. Was just such a beast when it comes to the sack numbers. I mean, he never had the problems in coverage as he did in Seattle and stuff like that. Like he was never tested much in coverage with the Jets. They more used him at kind of blitzing and more as a linebacker, while it feels like Seattle in a way used him more in coverage situations. I don't know. It feels like he had more of the coverage lapses in Seattle than he did with the Jets, but it's been a really, really bad fall off. And you've kind of seen an evil, like not an evil, that's probably too strong, but you've kind of seen a bad side of Jamal Adams where he's had the social media problems. He's had some, just kind of has this like cocky vibe to him when he hasn't done anything. It's a guy that got a huge contract and you never want to see anybody get hurt. You can't blame them for getting hurt, but he had a huge contract. He doesn't even play. He can't even stay healthy. Part of that is on the player. Part of it is, not all of it, but you can't talk all this trash. You can't go on social media and attack people when you can't even be successful in your own thing that you're doing. And he's really he's just not a very good player anymore. He's really not. Even the sack numbers are down. You know what's crazy? He hasn't had a sack in 3 years. He hasn't registered a sack since 2020.
I mean, when you
So
aren't playing, you don't really get
yeah,
much sack opportunities.
yeah, you don't. His last time he registered a sack was 2020 at 9.5 sacks, which impressive. But since then, he hasn't been able to do it. So it's been a really kind of a rough fall off for him. I mean, I've got that Jamal Adams jersey. You could dust that one off with about 5 other terrible New York Jets looking back on it. Darnold's probably sitting there right next to him in the closet. So that's fantastic. But yeah, it's this is kind of like a last one more opportunity for Jamal Adams. Go to Tennessee, try and revive your career. If not, feels like he might just be kind of a 1-year contract guy the rest of his career,
And well, two things I didn't know. I didn't know he was only 28, which is still, I guess, middle of the pack. Like you're not
Should
still
be prime.
super
Yeah.
young like a rookie, but if you could be to that point where like you are at, kind of that best point in your career, kind of all depends, I guess. Again, availability, how you take care of your body, those type of things. One, I didn't even know he was 28. Two, I didn't even know he's a free agent. So that just even furthers your point of like the downfall. Because again, like I just mentioned, this is the guy like I was hoping that Dallas traded for him when I know he kind of wanted to part ways with the Jets and was such a big name and a lot of teams are kind of interested in him. Then he goes to Seattle, he's not playing and just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth, I guess, up until this news broke. So, like you said, I mean, maybe this is a chance to kind of revive his career because we often say it, fresh start can lead to a different player, or it can be somewhere how you just mentioned as well, where he might play a year, probably 2 years, and after that, could be seeing his way out the league. But that just goes to show you how quickly things can change in the league.
Yeah, 100%. And just one more quick thing from a Jet perspective. Jamal Adams, I mean, I think Joe Douglas would still have a job, but you can kind of make the case Jamal Adams saved Joe Douglas's job because when Joe Douglas
Yeah.
put that trade together to ship Jamal Adams to the Seattle Seahawks in that offseason before that 2020 campaign, when the New York Jets knew they were going to tear things down, fire Gaze at the end of the year, all that stuff. They got back 2 first-round picks and Bradley McDougald, who played a couple games with the Jets, then they moved on. But those 2 first-round picks turned into Garrett Wilson and Elijah Vera Tucker. So completely flee Seattle. If that doesn't happen, if that trade doesn't go down or he doesn't get that back, what he got back, the Jets wouldn't have Garrett Wilson right now. They wouldn't have AVT. You'd be staring at probably a team that doesn't have Rodgers because I don't think Rodgers would come here if they didn't have a number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
So much would probably change if that didn't happen. So thank you, Jamal Adams, for your service. That's all I will say. Anyway, let's move on here to some quarterback rankings. We've had a lot of these, been fun to kind of react, break down some of these rankings. We've also had some team rankings. So today we've got some more quarterback rankings, NFC this time. So we'll throw it up here. It's up on the screen. This is Dakota Randall's NFC quarterback rankings. Dak 1, Stafford 2, Purdy 3, Hurts 4, Kyler 5, Jordan Love 6, Kirk 7, Baker Mayfield 8, number 5 in the NFL, according to Tyreek Hill. So we'll kind of put an asterisk next to that one. Jared Goff 9, and then rounding it out at 10 is Caleb Williams, the rookie in Chicago. I'll be honest, and I know we talked about this off air. I know we each kind of created our own list to break it down a little bit. We've taken a deep dive into a lot of lists. This is definitely one of the better ones, I would say. There's been some really bad ones. I mean, our last episode we did, I think that was the episode we talked about the teams. Pro Football Talk released their top, ranked all 32 NFL teams, and
Yeah.
they put like
The
ridiculous.
Chargers
So
at 15.
yeah, Chargers at
Yeah.
15.
Something
Ridiculous.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of a breath of fresh air. Would you agree with that? Obviously some changes, but nothing outrageous like Caleb Williams at 3 or Dak at like 7 or something like that, where they kind of come up with something crazy.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised by the list. I need to look up Dakota Randall and see if he or she even still has a job, because you can never give any Cowboys player anything, any type of praise. So hopefully they're still employed. But this list isn't too bad. Again, a few changes, and we're going to get into our own personal list, but it's actually one of the better that we've seen kind of throughout the course of offseason, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. There's been some bad ones. I mean, again, Tyreek Hill, we'll give you that list here soon. That was awful. So there's been some really, really bad ones. I guess we can kind of break it down, go by threes here. So their top 3 is Dak, Stafford, Purdy. Did you want to start, kick this one off, or do you want me? We can kind of rotate every other. I guess we can kind of just break it down in threes.
I can start my first 3. I
Right.
do agree with number 1. I agree with number 1. I mean, I'm not even going to rant a whole yapathon about number 1. We all know that's right. Number 2, I mean, surprisingly, I have Jared Goff, who is at 9 on this list. I'm going to give Jared Goff a lot more respect than I think he gets. I mean, just kind of briefly, this is a guy who kind of the Rams dusted the rug with him, kind of wiped their hands. They're like, hey, we're going to send you off, basically. And this is also, but kind of tell you off air, I was watching Wide Receiver on Netflix. So they kind of got more into it. But just that situation, it was kind of like, hey, in a way, we're going to screw the Lions over and we're going to get what we want. So you go have fun, ruin their franchise, whatever. It's worked out for him. I mean, just went to the NFC Championship. So I like Goff it too. I think he doesn't get enough respect. And his situation, in a way, reminds me of Dak, where like you only really have one great receiver that's doing everything for you. I know the Lions have Laporta, who had a great year, but we're not talking about a Joe Burrow situation where you just got so much talent and weapons around you to throw the ball to. So that's why I got Goff at 2. I think he's accomplished a lot. And Stafford at 3. I know he's not putting up the biggest, best of numbers kind of like he used to, but I mean, he has won a Super Bowl. And as long as him and McVay are there, you got to respect Stafford. So I like him at 3.
All right. So I'm right there with you. 1, Dak. Again, we've talked about Dak a lot. Totally agree. We both agree he's top 5 in the NFL. Definitely won an NFC. 2, I'm with you there. Goff. You mentioned it. You were spot on there. Just the way he's been able to revive his career too. This was a guy that kind of got ran out of town a little bit with the Rams. Kind of got the raw end of the stick. I mean, this was a guy that got them to a Super Bowl, and a couple years went by. They struggled a little bit. They wanted to go all in after that COVID season in 2021 with McVay and Stafford. Aaron Donald. They knew his career was kind of winding down. Sure enough, come to find out, he retires 2 years later with his retirement this offseason. They go all in. They win the Super Bowl. And you had Goff kind of having some of those, I guess, early team success-wise struggles in Detroit, but it's turned it around. He's got that whole city behind him. And that trade's kind of really turned into one of the bigger win-win trades. And I still think Goff, if he wins a Super Bowl with the Lions, that is the ultimate win-win trade because you exchange quarterbacks and both them win a Super Bowl with those teams. But just what Goff has been able to do that franchise, Stafford was walking into a team that just made the Super Bowl a couple years prior. There wasn't a whole lot of work needed to be done for him. Jared Goff walked into a full-on rebuild for one of an organization that has been one of the most pathetic laughingstock organizations in the NFL since their existence. So for him to overcome a lot of that, him and Dan Campbell have obviously been great. They locked up Penei Sewell, locked up Amon-Ra. He'll have those two guys along his side for a long time. He also got the bag as well. Credit to him. So Goff 2. 3, I have Hurts. So I'll go division. Rival with Dak. You may disagree, but I'm going to throw Hurts at 3. The running abilities, I really like Hurts. I think maybe it's because he's too flashy. Stafford might be the smarter, just veteran quarterback to put here, but I'm going to go the flashy route. I'm going to go Hurts. Got to a Super Bowl, couldn't finish it, but he's put up good big numbers. I really don't think the reason for Philly's struggles last year was so much on him. It was more so the defense being pathetically bad, historically bad in some areas. And I would even say this, it's interesting because I guess for Hurts, it's kind of like this year he's got a little bit of pressure on him because Jason Kelsey's not there anymore. And he was a big leader in that locker room. Hurts now has to kind of take over a leadership role on that offense. I know Lane Johnson's still there and there's some other guys, but it's really up to Hurts now with Kelsey gone. So that'll be interesting. Got some pressure there. A little bit of prove it year for him, but Hurts at 3.
I'm not going to disagree with it too much. I mean, you gave me some time to think. So I think Stafford and Hurts could kind of,
they're like
flop.
Interchangeable. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not too bad. But for me, I put Hurts at 4 for all the reasons you just said. I mean, looking back, I guess all hatred aside, all bias aside, it's just kind of hard for it's hard to not give him respect for what he's done because I mean, this is the guy kind of similar to Lamar Jackson that kind of came into the league and everyone's like, all right, well, he's not going to be that great of a thrower. And, kind of all the narratives that follow him. And like you said, you get to a Super Bowl and even though he didn't finish it, but you get to a Super Bowl and you accomplish things in a short amount of time that you need to accomplish. So I give him the respect for that. It's just the parts that kind of make me like, I don't know if we can say that. This team was 10-1, division wrapped up last year, and you got losses to the Cardinals, the Giants, which is not all on him, but it's not all on him. Mm-hmm. So it's hard because, I mean, the way I can give Hurts all the blame for that kind of falling apart is the same way people do with Dak in the playoffs. So I'm going to go Hurts at 4. Purdy at 5. I can't believe I just said that. Purdy at 5. I mean, we know we both call him a glorified game manager, but I guess you can say he's one of those people where you're just like, hey, you're just sitting there flipping fries, but he flips the best fries. I mean, he got the weapons around him. He has the weapons around him. He doesn't turn the ball over too much. So I know you got the type of playmakers where you can throw, like a 1-yard bubble, a bubble route or a 3-yard slant, and they can go 90 yards to the house. But just the fact of him being able to do it, like you kind of said off air, mystery relevant. I'll put Purdy at 5 and Kirk Cousins at 6 for me. I love Kirk Cousins.
That's I'm similar to you there. I'll throw Stafford at 4 just because he's got a more proven track record than Purdy. Stafford at 4, won a Super Bowl. We know what he's done. Obviously, he had the connection last year with Puka Nacua, which was historically good for a rookie. A lot of that was him, but a lot of that too was Stafford, and of course, Cooper Kupp and the connection he's had with him. Kyron Williams now back into the fold. The Rams will be a good team this year, even without Aaron Donald, although that's a huge, huge blow, losing an all-time great at the position. See, this is where it gets tough for me because I like Purdy. I do, right? I think we both like Brock Purdy. You know, it's a cool story, Mr. Irrelevant, but he is in a way a glorified game manager. I don't know if I'm going to want to put him at 5 and then push everybody else back. So I'll throw him at 5. You know what? No, we're going to put Jordan Love at 5. Jordan Love at 5. Purdy at 6. You know, I'm very high on the Packers this year. I'm very high on the Packers and Jordan Love. I've said it. We'll do our divisional rankings probably in August. But I'm calling it. I already think it's going to be Lions, Packers, right behind the Lions. Like, it might be, I think they legitimately could have the same record, but the Lions may have a tiebreaker. And then it's the Bears and the Vikings. I'm very high on the Packers this year. I'm very high on Jordan Love. He's got so much talent. Jordan Love, to me, did more with less last season. Like, I just think talent-wise, Jordan Love's more talented than Brock Purdy. Love at 5, Purdy at 6, right? Am I right? Yeah, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So Stafford, Jordan Love, Purdy.
Okay, I mean,
Love he was 5 minutes away from beating Purdy in his own building as a rookie.
You have a point. I mean, I got Jordan Love at 7.
All right.
I don't know what it is, but I agree with he did more with less. I mean, unless you kind of really know ball or you are a Packers fan, I don't think you can really name their receivers over there. So for him to throw, what was it, like 30 touchdowns, 32 touchdowns? I know it was 30 plus. For him to kind of accomplish that, and I think this was a team that was also kind of out of the mix for a good amount of time and snuck in behind his play. I give him that. There's a little part of me where it's like, I don't think they're sneaking up on anybody like they did last year. So I'm going to go him at 7. I'm going to just round out the rest of the 10. Love at 7, Kyler Murray at 8. Seems kind of low from what Kyler kind of produced when he first came in, but we haven't really seen much of Kyler as of late. I'm going to go Baker at 9 and Caleb Williams at 10.
All right. So I'm at 6, right? Yeah. Yes, 4, 5, 6. So I just said 6 was Purdy. 7's tough. I'm between Kirk and Baker here at 7. I'm kind of split. I'm going to go Kirk at 7. I'm going to go Kyler at 8, which I have Kyler at 8.
Okay.
Baker at 8, Kyler at 9, Caleb at 10. So I'll go through the full list. I'll go Dak, Goff, Hurts. 4 is Stafford. 5 is Love. 6 is Purdy. 7 is Kirk staying where he is. 8 is Baker. 9 is Kyler. So 7 and 8 don't change. 9's Kyler. And then 10's Caleb Williams. That's how we're on that out.
I think it's solid. I mean, 8 and 9, could switch.
Baker and Kyler.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Kyler's what we've seen from him. I know I kind of just said we haven't seen enough, but it's also like what we have seen. So it's kind of tough, but for me, I guess
what we could see too.
Yeah, that's another thing. We're gonna get some Marvin Harrison this year.
Yeah.
Trey McBride looked great when Kyler came back in. So
yeah. And with Kyler or Baker, Baker's got a ton of talent too. He had Mike Evans, got Chris Godwin, right? Kyler's had nothing. He's had nothing. He's had James Conner out of the backfield, and that's about it. They had one receiver last year that I know was kind of their number one option. I can't even think of his name.
Rondell Moore, I think, had a pretty decent year last year.
Rondell Moore.
Was Hollywood? Why do I feel like Hollywood Brown was there during it?
Brown.
I think was he there? I know Rondell Moore definitely was there.
Greg Dortch. That was it.
Greg Dortch, yes.
Greg Dortch. He had a couple numbers aren't impressive, but there was a couple games I remember. I remember specifically that Philly game. I think that was like a big game for the Cardinals. Everybody kind of saw that game. Even if you weren't a Cardinals fan, to go into Philly and upset them, that was like That was officially signaling the
Well,
Eagles' downfall to let Arizona go into your own building. But
you,
Greg Dortch that game
you
had
know,
7 receptions for 82 yards. So
do you know
that's
do you know how there's certain events in life that happen that's just so memorable? You remember
yeah.
everything you were doing.
You knew
That
where
is that
you
game.
are. You know
That
what's
is
funny?
that
I
game for you.
I could tell you exactly where I was too for that. It's funny you
That's
mentioned that.
yes,
That was
because
a historic moment for NFL fans to see Eagles fans cry.
I was it was on receiver, obviously kind of showing
Yeah.
San Fran clinch the number one seed and what they needed. But I am at Buffalo Wild Wings, 10-piece honey barbecue wing with some fries,
Mhm.
watching that game. It was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, I feel like I found out what I needed. Whenever I need Philly to lose, go to Buffalo Wild Wings, get a 10-piece
Yeah.
honey barbecue wing. Traditional, by the way.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of boneless, but go get some wings. Buffalo Wild Wings, guaranteed.
You
Superstition.
know, yeah. I was at somebody that lives right up the road from me. I go over to his house often for football Sunday. I was there. We were done with the 1 o'clock games. Eagles came on, and in came Greg Dortch, and I believe that I think the Jets that week, if I remember correctly, I believe that week the Jets had a Thursday game. I think they might have. Um, I think they had a Thursday game because they had the game. Yeah, I think it was Thursday. Because they didn't play that Sunday. Um, they played the Browns. They got mollywomped, and then Greg Dortch and the Cardinals upset the Eagles. But yeah, that was like a big one. That kind of put the Cardinals on notice. But yeah, Kyler now has a number one receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. Like you said, Trey McBride. We'll see kind of what Jonathan Gannon is. I don't know how much again, this team didn't have a ton of talent. They were in some of the games with Josh Dobbs. You give him Marvin Harrison Jr., you give him Kyler Murray back into the fold. I've said I think the Cardinals are going to be a really kind of sneaky team. They're going to be a team that's going to upset some teams. I don't think they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to win the division. They're not going to win 12 games and have this magical season. They're still probably a piece or two away. If they had Marvin Harrison Jr., let's say, and maybe, I don't know, what's like a solid number 2 option maybe for them. Maybe like a
Tyler
Gabe
Boyd.
Davis, Tyler
Gabe
Boyd. Yeah,
Davis.
Tyler
Yep.
Boyd. Like a solid number 2 option. Then I could say, all right, 2 good, reliable options, because you still kind of have questions outside of, I know they've got Zay Jones and stuff, but you still have some questions outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. Of course, he's a rookie too. While he's a stud, he might have some of those growing pains. And there's going to be that barrier too where Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. have to break to build that chemistry with each other as a rookie wideout. So I don't know. What do you think? 7 wins? Is that crazy? I mean, they were 4 last year. Feels like they've probably improved 3 games at least, right?
Got to. I mean, just in the division alone, I feel like they could win 4 or 5 there. I mean,
yeah.
I think they could. They're capable of beating Seattle twice, and they are capable of beating the Rams twice, maybe once. They always play San Fran tough, so they're definitely not going to be a cakewalk. Like I know last year, at least when Dallas played them, I'm thinking Arizona, I can kind of sleep this game off. So it's not going to be like that this year with Arizona. Like they are going to be competitive, and they're going to whatever momentum they gained last year from Philly, like we were saying, and moving on, they're going to carry that into this season. So I think 7, 8.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. And look, they'll be in the conversation, I think, potentially for a playoffs, right? If you win 7 games in a year, you're going into December with a chance. That's kind of how the Jets have been, right? They went into December last year with a chance. They weren't eliminated until that Dolphins game, so mid-December, until they only had 3 games left. So you'll go into December with a chance. Might not be a great chance. They'll probably, they might be 5-9, let's say, and then they pick up 2 wins in their final 3 games and finish 7-10. This might be something like that, but they'll still be in it mathematically. But yeah, I mean, you just looking at their schedule from last year. I know we've talked about this a lot, but they could have easily been 3-0 to start the season. That's the crazy part. They lost by 4 against Washington. And I think what's probably the worst of them all was blowing a second half lead to Daniel Jones and the Giants was brutal.
Yeah, I think they were up 28-0 in that game, if
Yeah.
I remember.
Yep. They were up. Yeah. They were up. I know they were up like 20-0 going into just halftime. They were up like 20-0. And then they just kept pouring it on to start, and then they stopped.
Just another one of those. During that game, I'm at the Cowboys and Jets game. I go check the score. They got the score up on the Jumbotron to say, look, this is the Giants team that's supposed to compete with us. Getting blown out. They came back and win. Cardinals beat us the next week. So, they could have been 3-0 to start.
The good old Jets Cowboys
just
whooping.
It's crazy. So they started with 3 straight NFC East teams, right?
Yeah.
You said Washington, the Giants, and Cowboys. And just in what multiverse, just the way the Giants and Washington ended the year, and then the way we're kind of predicting to do this year.
Dallas. Yeah.
How do they just beat Dallas? How do you just beat Dallas?
Yeah, you make a great point. Like if you would have told me, okay, they have 3 AFC East teams to start, I would probably say they beat. I don't know. Washington's worse than the Giants. Going into last year, I actually had somewhat of expectations at the Giants. They're coming off a playoff win, coming off a divisional round. Like I thought they'd be solid. So I probably would have said they would have beat Washington. But blowing a 4-score lead, 3-score lead, whatever it was, to the New York Giants at home is worse than losing to the Commanders where, you were up 16-10 going into the fourth quarter, but it's not like you had a 20-plus point. I mean, you lead by 20-plus points. There's no excuse to lose that game, especially at home. But then they only beat Dallas, which is...
I just wanted to make Justin Herbert make sure he heard that. If
you
got a 20-point lead, let's say 27, there's no reason to lose that game. But,
make a good point.
That's all. Good point.
So you know what else you talk about, like events that you know where you are? The Josh Dobbs run. Every minute of that run, I feel like I have it stored in my memory bank. It's going to be under useless information because it didn't mean anything in the long run. But like down the road, I'll be talking to people and I'll be like, remember 2023, that weird season? We had all these backup quarterbacks and Josh Dobbs went on a Linsanity run for 3 weeks and looked like an MVP candidate.
An absolute crazy run. People are like, he might play his way into the starting lineup. I mean, like a starting job for somebody. And then he just
that Raiders game, they scored 3 points, 3-0, I think. It was a field goal to win it. And then that ended the run. In fact, I remember exactly where I was for when he came in against the Falcons. Jaron Hall got hurt. He came in, didn't even know the playbook. He was working on calls and stuff on the sidelines with the offensive line. And then he leads him to a comeback. I don't know what's more embarrassing. I don't know what's like, is it more embarrassing to be the Falcons in that situation, or was it more impressive for Dobbs?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean,
both, yeah.
And he did get traded. Didn't he get traded from Arizona to Minnesota?
Yeah, mid-season.
Which was kind of like
Arizona was fueling the tank.
Yes.
Dobbs gave him a chance.
And then he goes to Minnesota and just stunk it up.
Yeah, they knew Kyler was coming back, so they traded him. Saw Kirk Cousins was down, obviously, but yeah, crazy. You never know. That's why the NFL's king. You truly never know. Who knows what the script writers got for this year? Last year, the script writers went a little off script for me. Too off script. Letting Aaron Rodgers go down in 4 plays is way too cruel. We have to scale it back this year. Maybe at most twisted ankle. Okay, at most twisted ankle. No need to go to the Achilles route again.
How about we just roll in special MetLife turf every time the Jets play?
Yeah. What's crazy is they've had 2 soccer games there.
And nobody hurt. The Copa America. And not a single
they've grass there. So they'll put grass in for soccer, which I don't know if you watch soccer. I couldn't care less about soccer. I haven't watched a soccer match since I've maybe watched 1 soccer match in my entire life.
Not a fan.
You roll it in for that, but you don't roll it in for the 2 NFL teams that you have here. 2 crappy NFL teams that have had more injuries than wins over the last decade, pretty much. Brutal. Anyway, that's my MetLife Stadium turf rant. All right. Speaking of quarterback rankings, we'll play this clip quick here, and we'll move on to Davante and close things out shortly after that. Tyreek Hill. We just talked about top NFC quarterbacks. Tyreek Hill discussing his top 5 quarterbacks in the league. This isn't just NFC quarterbacks in the league. However, 2 NFC quarterbacks were included. One should be on the list. The other, I don't know why the heck he is even sniffing the top 5, let alone top 10. In all respect to Baker Mayfield, but here it is.
Top 5 quarterbacks in the league: Patrick, Tua, Lamar, Dak, Baker Mayfield.
He you know, it's funny. He tried to sneak Tua and Baker Mayfield in there like nothing was happening. He was like, Patrick, Tua. Let me just quickly say it. And he was like, Baker Mayfield, let me go hide.
Yeah,
He thought he could get away with it.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we spoke off air. Mahomes, obviously. Tua, he's gonna say his teammate. I get it.
Yeah.
Dak,
100%.
yes. Lamar, yes. Baker Mayfield. So, like, Joe Burrow just doesn't exist. Josh Allen just doesn't exist. We can even say Justin Herbert just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Jalen
Baker
Hurts,
Mayfield.
Jared Goff.
And I actually
All
like
better.
Baker Mayfield, like a lot. I really do like Baker Mayfield. I've always liked Baker Mayfield. In college, I like Baker Mayfield. But there is no way we threw Baker Mayfield in the top 5 quarter. Not NFC, not AFC, not top 5 in the NFL.
You know, that's funny. It's funny you mention like you've always liked Baker Mayfield because I've kind of been the opposite. You still like Baker Mayfield, right?
Absolutely. I am a Baker stan.
Mm-hmm. I've kind of been like the opposite. I like him now, but he was coming out of college. I couldn't stand Baker Mayfield. I just his college stuff to me was just, it was ridiculous. He just came off as like cocky. I thought he was going to be a bust, which I don't know. Baker's kind of one of those. Yeah, he's a bust, but he's not like a complete bust because he's turned his career around, almost like Geno in Seattle. Like he was a bust with the Jets. He's turned it around. He had that stint with the Giants, which was a disaster. Of course, the end of the road with the Jets. Never was very good with the Jets. He had a couple moments, but ultimately it ended with a broken jaw and a suitcase saying, "You're out of here. Go find a ride to the airport. You're gone." That's ultimately what ended. So it ended poorly, but he's turned it around. Like Baker's one of those. He's like a partial bust. He's a bust in Cleveland history, I would say. You take a quarterback. I mean, he hasn't lived up to number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, no.
But he's turned his career around. I respect it. I started to really respect Baker Mayfield in probably last year, really, because he kind of got forgotten about in 2022. He played 12 games split between the Panthers and the Rams. So random. And I started to respect him last year because nobody expected him and Todd Bowles to do anything. I was at the joint practice last year with the Jets and the Bucs. I think I've told this story before. And I was watching the Buccaneers, and my God, they just looked bound for a 4-13 season, something along those lines. And for him to go out there and make the playoffs, and hey, they were pretty darn close to the NFC title game. They had the Lions there. It was a close game. They win a wild card game. They beat Philly, which of course was nice. I think that maybe gained to respect a little bit too. Always nice to see Philly go down. But yeah, I've kind of been the opposite. Like I couldn't stand Baker Mayfield coming out of college. And maybe too, it was like Darnold got drafted, same class as him. I, of course, was rooting for Darnold. If Baker was good, then that wouldn't be a good thing for the Jets AFC wise. But also you look back on it and you'd say, oh, 2018 draft class, Baker Mayfield and a bunch of stiffs. Turns out though.
My thing with Baker, I mean, which is kind of odd because I absolutely hate Oklahoma with a passion. So overrated every single year. I really hate Oklahoma, but I like Baker. I know. I mean, you said he. I agree. Like he was very cocky, but I mean, the Kansas thing was legendary. You don't want to shake my hand. I'm just gonna come out here and torch you. It was legendary.
That is true. That is true. Yeah,
but
you're right.
Even with the Brown stint, I mean, if just kind of think about on his career there. I feel like they had a great chance at winning the Super Bowl if was that Kansas City? Was it Donovan
Yep.
Peoples-Jones who got hit? It was targeting. He fumbled, I think, out the back of the end zone. I mean, I'm pretty. Super Bowl is like up here, like outrageous, but they were going to go pretty far if those turn of events didn't happen. So I think Cleveland kind of started to change form a little bit, and then, like say,
Yeah.
he bounced around, went to the Panthers, the Rams, completely random, and with Tampa, I can see why he gained the respect. I mean, you're stepping in after Brady, everyone kind of written you off already, even though you are playing in basically like, I don't know, the Mountain West of the NFL. Like there's nobody good there. But just to step in after Brady, go to the playoffs, I respect it. So I like Baker. I'll always back Baker.
The Mountain West, the Sun Belt, the Pac-2.
Yeah.
They're all up there.
Yeah. Pac-2. Yeah.
So you make a good point. That 2020 run, I remember that game. Divisional round Chiefs, that was the closest they ever got.
Yeah.
If they win that game, they play Buffalo. And Kansas City blew out Buffalo in the title game. Now, Buffalo actually was leading early on, but I believe Cleveland would have had to go to Buffalo because KC was the 1 seed. Bills, I think, were the 2. KC was 14-2. Bills are 13-3. Browns would have went to Buffalo. That's weird. That's weird to think. Now, the Bucs were winning that Super Bowl either way because KC got embarrassed. Tom Brady was destined. So I don't think either Buffalo or Cleveland would have got there. But you make a good point. We were one win away from seeing a Browns-Bills AFC title game. That is so strange. And one of Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield would have had a Super Bowl appearance, which is just so strange to think that we would have seen, it just is strange because neither of those quarterbacks right now, you would, I would say Josh Allen more so, but with all the playoff failure, it's like you have no hope. You just feel like it's going to be the same thing with the Bills every single year. And Baker Mayfield was just kind of wild because he didn't make the playoffs in his first 3 seasons with the Browns, or his first 2 years. No, 2 seasons. 2020 makes it. 2021 misses it. Yeah, that would have been weird because then now he's in Tampa. If he would have played Tampa in the Super Bowl, fast forward 3 years later, he would have been in Tampa. It's always kind of fun going down that path and trying to rewrite different games, like figure it out.
The what ifs in NFL history.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even go back to that AFC title game, Patriots Chiefs in 2019, the first one from Mahomes. If the Chiefs win that, Mahomes has probably got 4 rings because he would have won 2019, he would have won the 2020, and then he would have won 2021, right? Because
what was
2021. Wait, hold on. Wait, was this? No, 2018. I'm sorry. 2018 was when he lost to the Patriots because that's the Patriots-Rams Super Bowl. That was the last one of the Belichick Brady era because 2019 they split up. They lost to the Titans. They were out. Done.
Yep.
2020 was the Bucs, Brady in Tampa, KC, just what we were talking about. 2021, of course, was Bengals, Rams, and then the last 2 years have been Chiefs.
Well, we are missing one. Is that
we are missing one because he
beat
2020
was the Niners. The Niners.
That was 20. That was 2020. That was before COVID. Like that was just like a month before COVID.
Yeah, or was that the? I think
was that 2019 Super Bowl?
I think that was the peak of COVID because it was in Miami, and I know like they had a certain amount of people that can get in. So they really spiked the prices.
I thought that was
Tampa was
the COVID Super Bowl when they hosted it, the first team to ever do it, and the Rams did it the next year, right? Yeah,
I think that was 18. We got to look this up. It's going to drive me crazy. Let's see if I can find this here.
I'll just look up Super Bowl Pro Football Reference. Pro Football Reference is such a legendary site.
They are so good.
All right. So, you know what's weird about Super Bowls is the actual year it happened, the Super Bowl doesn't happen. Like the 2019 season, Super Bowl's in 2020. Last year was the 2023 2023 season. Super Bowl's 2024. So you think 2023 and you think Chiefs Eagles, not Chiefs.
That is why it gets confusing.
All right.
There
So
it is.
2019 was Patriots over the Rams. That
Yes,
was
the
Mahomes' first
18,
year.
the 18-19 season
Yeah.
is that one. And then
1920 was Chiefs over the Niners.
COVID year.
And in 2020, 2021 was Tampa KC, which was
Yep.
obviously Brady and Tampa beating Mahomes. 2021, 2022 is, of course, Rams Bengals. Rams
Yep.
get their Super Bowl. Bengals, of course, knocked off the Chiefs in the title game. And in the last 2 years have been the Chiefs. So yeah, if the Chiefs would have won that, or if the Chiefs would have won that game against the Patriots, the Chiefs would have 4 Super Bowls. And they would have had back-to-back twice already. That would be crazy. Wow. Tactically, I mean, if you rewrite it all, Chiefs would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Super Bowls in like 6 seasons. That'd be, jeez, if they would have
That
beat
is incredible.
Tampa.
That is insane.
Nuts. Absolutely crazy.
I just still remember people like and I sometimes I anytime it pops it back up, but I'll go look at the cold takes under like the Chiefs drafting Mahomes and all the fans are so against it. And now look. I mean,
Yeah.
you can honestly retire his number right now. No one's ever wearing 15.
Oh,
Like after
100%. Nah,
it is crazy.
They could retire his number right now.
Right.
Hey, man, I mean, let's be honest. As much as he's kind of been annoying in the media the last year for a lot of us NFL fans, dragging Taylor Swift into things, but Kelsey's probably 87. You could retire his right about now too.
Yep, that's another one.
Yeah. And Andy Reid, I don't know, retire his stash, something like that. He'll be up there. Reid.
Have you seen the Travis Kelce story? You got to watch it if you haven't. So apparently, like at Cincinnati, was getting in some trouble, and to the point he probably wasn't even going to be drafted. Like a lot of teams were trying to stay away from him. And Jason Kelce, I'm trying to see, was he already with Andy Reid in Philly at this time? I don't remember exactly. But Jason Kelce basically like, look to Andy Reid, like, look, please give my brother a chance. Like, I kind of talked to him, told him he needs to turn it around, yada, yada, yada. Fast forward, greatest tight end in NFL history. You got to watch that clip if you can find it. But the whole Travis Kelce thing almost never even happened.
Interesting. Jason Kelce would have just been Jason Kelce to the moon.
Yeah, basically. That's all there's been to it.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Davante Adams. We'll play the clip here. He was on the Kay Adams show this past week discussing Aaron Rodgers still trying to recruit him, seems like, to the Jets. Could other teams be involved? We'll break it down here, but here is the clip.
You two are boys, a lot of love for each other. You went to the Derby together. We see the pictures on the Instagram. Are you telling me he's not getting your ear and saying, hey, I want to play with you again?
Oh, he's in that ear, that's for sure. he's in the ear, but it's not as easy as it. Obviously we can get together and talk about the old times and potential of doing this and that. But like I said, I'm a Raider, so and he knows that. So we'll maybe the next.
Yeah, interesting. So he's been in his ear. Aaron Rodgers has. Now, I'll admit this has been something that has kind of been out there ever since the Rodgers trade to the New York Jets went down last April. And when you knew Derek Carr was going to be out in Vegas, you knew Josh McDaniels, things were at a boiling point there. You already heard some rumors last offseason. So this is almost going on like a whole calendar year. We thought last year the Jets would maybe go after him in the deadline. Of course, Rodgers goes down 4 plays in. It's all over. Didn't matter anyway. Neither team was in contention. Going to the offseason, nothing happens. Jets go out and get like Mike Williams and guys like that. And it seems like Davante Adams, at least on the outside, is fine with being a Raider. But as you mentioned, you've been watching the wide receiver show on Netflix. You've seen the frustration of him with Jimmy G last year with Josh McDaniels. It seems like there is a little bit of relief or hope with Davante Adams that Antonio Pierce could turn things around. But at the end of the day, it seems more of his frustration was with the quarterback. And going into the season, he's got a battle between Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew as to who's going to be throwing passes to him week 1. I'd take Aaron Rodgers over both those guys. I think everybody in the world would say that. What was your thoughts on this?
Well, like I told you off air, I did watch receiver. I just finished it yesterday. So as you can see, kind of watching it, Davante Adams was very unhappy and very frustrated with Jimmy G. It's an obvious, but as when Josh McDaniels kind of kicked to the curb and they made that switch to Aiden O'Connell, you seen like he started to enjoy the game again and he enjoyed being there. So I mean, if he does believe in Antonio Pierce and then Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, whichever one's the starter week one, I mean, I think they kind of understand, like, get the ball to Davante Adams. So I think he's going to be okay this season. But him and Rodgers, I mean, he wants to reconnect with Rodgers. Even a clip when the Jets and the Raiders met during last season, him and Rodgers apparently went to hang out, went to a restaurant, talked for some hours, and there's a clip of them on the field. Davante Adams just tell him, like, yo, I appreciate, like, us going out last night. Really needed that. Really helped me with that headspace, all those type of things. So, there's a part of him in Vegas where he's kind of like, he's more happy to be there now with, like I said, the changes, but I'd rather catch passes from Aaron Rodgers any day than the other two. And it's no disrespect to the other two. Just you had that connection in Green Bay. So, and obviously you went over there to be Derek Carr. He's no longer there. So go to a situation where you're happy in being. But just for him, I mean, I personally would love to see it just because I want Davante Adams to win, how we were just saying. Such a likable guy. And even how I kind of tell you, like, I've never heard him talk or seen an interview with him before watching receiver. But just, like a humble guy, doesn't throw anybody under the bus. And he knows his time is coming up. And I told you off air as well, he keeps mentioning that in the show, like he doesn't have that much longer. So I do want to see him win one. I want to see – I'm not going to say that. I don't even believe that. I want to see Rodgers win one. I'm not even going to say that out of my mouth. I want to see Davante Adams win one. And if that means Rodgers winning one, then it
take
happens.
it.
I would take it.
You would
I don't
sacrifice one.
I would sacrifice one. And it's not like I don't like Rodgers. This is going to contradict. Like, I actually really like Rodgers. I just didn't like him during his time in Green Bay, destroying Dallas. But now I like to watch. I like to watch Rodgers. So I'm all right. Just kidding a little bit. I want to see Rodgers win another one. I want to see Davante Adams win one. And I think it'll just be good for the sport, good for the two of them. Just two great guys. I know one gets slandered by the media for certain things, but he's a baller. Adams is a baller. So the two of them can kind of, get back together and at least accomplish what they couldn't in Green Bay. I'll be happy because it's not Green Bay. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Oh, you're 100% right. And, I'm glad you mentioned that with, Derek Carr and stuff. That's the reason he went to Vegas, was to play with his former college teammate at Fresno State, Derek Carr. He left, and now Davante Adams is stuck with two average at best, it seems, quarterback options. Gardner Minshew is a guy that can get you to about 8-9 wins, but that's probably a ceiling. If you make the wild card, he's probably not winning. And then Aiden O'Connell is even worse, I would say. I mean, he's kind of, I don't know. I didn't see a whole lot of out of him last year, but you talk about the greatness with Rodgers and Davante Adams. Davante Adams' career with the Packers, 669 receptions, 8,121 yards, 73 touchdowns in 116 games playing alongside Rodgers in those 8 years. Back end of his prime, he's 32. He wants to win. And he's been around. This is his 11th season. The time's running out, like you mentioned, on the receiver show. And while right now it might seem on the outside, look, Davante Adams isn't going to come out and say, I want to play for the Jets. I want to get traded. He's not going to do that. Even if maybe he does want to get traded, he's going to keep that in-house. He's not going to publicly come out and say that, or publicly come out and say, oh, I hate it with the Raiders, but I got to play here anyway because in my contract and stuff like that. No, he's not going to say that. He's going to play it cool. But the Raiders, let's be fair, they are still, all these players, it's a honeymoon phase still with Antonio Pierce, right? If things go off the rails early in the season and they start out 1-3, 1-4, no matter how positive Antonio Pierce, and I really like Antonio Pierce. I think he's really one of the young and upcoming coaches. Like, I think can do some really good things. He doesn't have an immense amount of talent, but this team was a disaster last year. They're one of the worst teams in football. He turned it around and made them at least watchable product, right? This team was pretty much unwatchable, and turned them around and made them, they finished 8-9 and they went on the road and beat Kansas City. Never easy to do that. So, but if they start out slow, Davante Adams, and if let's say the Jets start out like 4-1, 5-1, Davante Adams is going to see that and say, yeah, I want out of here. Now, it's a complex situation for the Raiders because if Antonio Pierce does start slow, is he going to want to trade away his best player and all of a sudden say, oh, I took this job now, I'm going to have no talent to work with, absolutely zero talent to work with? Because then all of a sudden he enters a territory where if things don't go right for him, could they just move on from him and completely blow it up? Like interim coaches that get extended long-term are kind of on a year-to-year basis. And is Antonio Pierce going to want, it's a complicated situation. And I think, look, the trade deadline is at November 5th. It's after week 9. Raiders have a week 10 bye. What do you think their record has to be for them to deal him to anywhere? Because you mentioned the Cowboys. Look, CeeDee Lamb and Davante Adams would be disgusting. That would be nasty as well.
That would be insufferable. But you said that is. You said
9 games in week 9 after their 9 game, and then they have a bye week, so they'll be playing 9 games. I would say they have to at least be 3-6 because if they're 4-5, you're not selling. If you're 3-6 or worse, 2-7, you're probably selling, right?
I'm gonna say 3-6. Anything 3-6 and under, they're gonna be. Yeah. I think they'll be willing to sell. And I know you just said it's complicated with kind of all this, everything is lined up. But here's the thing: if I'm correct, Jacoby Myers is still in a Raiders uniform for this season. They did also sign Michael Gallup, so it's like it's not a needle mover, and it's not one of those situations where you're like, all right, we moving from Davante Adams, we'll be perfectly fine. Because it's Davante Adams we're talking about. Like, you're not going to be fine. But I also kind of think, in a way, if Adams and Pierce or someone, kind of they have that understanding where Adams is like, again, like he keeps saying, yo, I don't have that much time. I got a few years in me, especially after last year. I don't know if you knew, but from watching the show, he played with, I believe, a separated AC joint for like majority of the year. So he some injuries or a injury that can affect you long term. So if you kind of go in where like, I don't have that much more time left, I'm playing with some injuries or play with some injuries that could end a career. Like at this point of time, at this age, we're not winning. I'm sacrificing myself, sacrificing my body. Get me out of here. I feel like it could happen because, again, you got Myers. And then you got Gallup. And then if the Jets, we're obviously going to say the Jets, if the Jets can include some draft picks in here and then a player or two for the Raiders' needs, I could see it happening. I don't think it's kind of too far-fetched, especially if teams are kind of in their right mind of kind of like, we know Adams wants to go to the Jets. Obviously, nobody in the AFC wants to let it happen. The Bills, the Dolphins, they're like, absolutely not. But I think Adams is at that point where people kind of know, look, he wants to go with Rodgers. He wants to go with the Jets. I kind of feel like in a way they let it happen where it's just one of those things you live with. So I feel like it could happen, especially if, yes, they're sitting at 3-6 and worse, but 4-5 and, you're competitive, not too far out the playoff race. I don't see it happening. So we're going to need just a Raiders stinker.
Yeah. And two, from the Jets perspective, let's say there's maybe some injuries and maybe Mike Williams isn't quite what they thought he would be coming off the torn ACL. Then they would definitely make the move. I mean, the only way I don't see them making the trade is because Rodgers is going to have power in this. He's going to say like, hey, I want my guy here. But unless if like Xavier Gibson's playing well, Malachi Corley's playing well as a rookie, Mike Williams is balling, Garrett Wilson's having a huge year. Unless if all those things are happening, I think the Jets would still be open to bringing in Davante Adams. If everything's working perfectly, maybe they don't, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Maybe they'll keep rolling with it. But then again, to the people that say that, like, this is Davante Adams. Like, if you have a chance to add a player like this, he's been a top 5 receiver in the NFL for pretty much a decade. You have a chance to add a receiver this talent, this level with Aaron Rodgers, who they would have chemistry. This isn't like we're talking about one of these other elite receivers that would have to come over at the deadline and build chemistry with the quarterback. They have 8 years of chemistry. He could step right in and perform the week after he gets traded. 5 days after he gets traded, he could step in. Him and Rodgers wouldn't miss a beat because they played 8 years together. And it was 8 very good years. So definitely something to watch. Definitely something to watch for as the season goes on. No doubt. I think if you're a team that wants maybe a receiver at the deadline, you got to root against the Raiders. Hope that they are struggling. I like Antonio Pierce. I don't want to quite root against him. Not rooting against Antonio Pierce. I'm only rooting against the Raiders for my own team's success, hopefully, if that makes sense, I guess. Not because I don't like the Raiders. I don't really have any like or dislike. I have no ill will towards the Raiders. They're the Raiders. So, no problems with them. But yeah, this will be interesting. It's definitely an interesting story. Who knows? Maybe once the Bills figure out that I don't know what I was I wanted to say once the Bills figure out that Chase Claypool isn't good, maybe they'll try and strike a trade, but I hope they already figured that out by now, right?
Not quite yet. Got it. Everyone, everyone looks good in shorts and shirts and training camp tape. Everyone looks like a Pro Bowler.
Is just awful. It is Curtis Samuel, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Chase Claypool, Mac Hollins, Justin Shorter, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, just premium names. They're going to have some really tough decisions to make. I think they're going to have a lot more tougher decisions to make as opposed to like honestly, 90% of the receiving core would be cut on any good.
I was about to say this might be the first situation in NFL history where every single one of your receivers is up to cut besides Keon Coleman. Well, any given one can just be cut. It's just it's so bad.
Chase Claypool would be a guy that if they brought in Davante Adams and he was in let's say Keon Coleman's really good. Davante Adams gets traded for. Chase Claypool as a third receiver, let's say, would still put up no production, even as the third priority for a defense.
I think I disagree. There's no way a guy like this played in Miami with
I know exactly.
And didn't do anything, right?
He had 4 catches last year, 9 games.
He can obviously have a big year. If you played in Miami's offense as the third option, you can go to Buffalo and just blow up. That's impossible.
Yeah. Good times. I don't like to root against teams, but the Bills kind of did this to themselves. I do. One of them. But to be as professional as possible, I don't want to just sound like I just hate the Bills, which I sort of do. But they just did this. They just did this to themselves. Like they moved on from Diggs. They moved on from Gabe Davis. Brandon Beane thought it'd be a good idea to put together a room. Marquez Valdes-Scantling doesn't have hands. Chase Claypool doesn't know how to get the ball. Like he doesn't know how. All he knows how to do is TikTok. And that's about it. He retired from that. Even that he's washed.
I wonder, did Buffalo already take their media day pictures or their headshot for the roster photos? Because I'm just kind of curious if Josh Allen smiled in every single one, and then after a few practices with this receiver core, is just gray beard. Stressed out.
It's like when Alvin Kamara saw Derek Carr, he left practice. Josh Allen, once he saw Chase Claypool and all of them come out of the locker room, he left practice. Breaking news. Josh Allen leaves the first training camp practice after seeing Chase Claypool's route running.
Josh Allen might have to get with Aaron Rodgers and find out where that dark retreat is at because he is going to need it. After training camp, he's going to need it.
He's going to need ayahuasca. He's going to need everything. A darkness retreat, everything you could think of, even maybe a trip to Egypt, which is where Rodgers was in minicamp in Egypt, probably smoking like pot in Egypt.
Just go miss a few days of practice, go to Egypt. Just self-reflective. Is there more to football than what's going on? That's what Josh Allen needs.
There's a couple guys in the NFL right now that just need that. Josh Allen's one of them. Alvin Kamara is one of them. Who else did you say?
Sean Payton's one of them.
Sean Payton's one of them. Oh, God.
I know he's going through it.
Oh, he's definitely going through it. He is definitely going through it. Watching that quarterback room every day at practice, I That's like watching paint dry.
It got to be bad over there. I don't want to. I like Bo Nix. I want Bo Nix to be successful, but it's just like this might be the worst offseason of all time. You trade for Zach Wilson, which if anyone ever forgot, we called that so long ago.
We did.
You get these ugly uniforms with 5280. Like they are just Denver. They are just milking the elevation thing at this point. The Nuggets got it on their uniforms.
Yeah,
5-2
5280. I don't even know if Zach's hit that for his career passing yards yet.
Absolutely not. And that might be the amount of fans they get in the stands every single game. And they're like 70,000 seat stadium.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Anyway, any closing thoughts?
Oh, actually, just watching receiver. I really want you to watch it if you find a way to. I really seen how terrible Jimmy G actually is. I mean, this kind of goes to, I think we talked about it before, of just how good you kind of got to give, like how good Kyle Shanahan might actually be, because Jimmy G took this team to the Super Bowl, and now Davante Adams is on the sideline talking about I need to get out before I lose my life, and I've never been hit this many times with Jimmy G. It's quite interesting to see the fall off of Jimmy G. I wonder if another 49er, Brock Purdy, might be next if that route kind of happens, but that's all.
Yeah, totally agree. Jimmy G, he was doing PEDs too. He got suspended. PEDs, and he still couldn't throw a football.
And he got worse.
Talk about it. That is a guy that needs to go on a darkness retreat. Darkness retreat and stay in the darkness.
Don't it? Yeah, you just don't retire.
Just stay there. Just work on another sport. Just learn another sport. Give up. Yeah. Give up. And this guy was in the Super Bowl too. Isn't that something? That's
why Super Bowls aren't everything. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that you are make a great point. Jimmy G was in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Now he can't even stay on the Raiders.
Yeah, is he a free agent? I don't even know what he is right now, if I'm being honest. I'm gonna look it up afterwards, but Jimmy G for you.
He's free. No, he's with the Rams. I forgot about that. He's with the Rams, but he's suspended, obviously.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. All right.
Stafford better not go down. You have to call Jimmy G out of the darkness and the suspension. That won't be good. Anyway, we're writing the script here. This is the script. Jimmy G on drugs leading the way. Anyway, that'll do it. We will see you back here next week for episode 21. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.